Thanks for joining us again on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Just going to update you on some things that could take place regarding the Charlotte Hornets in free agency. Now, we did also release an episode that informed you all about what's taking place with Miles Bridges right now. The Charlotte Hornets also released a statement following the Miles Bridges situation. The Charlotte Hornets are aware of the situation involving Miles Bridges. We are in the process of gathering additional information. We will have no further comment at this time. For those of you that might not know what that situation is, Miles Bridges, I want to put this up and get this, exactly correct. Miles Bridges was arrested for suspicion of felony domestic violence in LA on Wednesday. He turned himself in Wednesday after the incident took place on Tuesday, and the woman involved did require some medical attention. So very serious. And also, that's what the Charlotte Hornets have put out at this time. Doug, this situation at hand is going to greatly affect the Charlotte Hornets in free agency. Kind of hard to talk about some of what they have to do because this is in a limbo. At the same time, the Hornets aren't afforded any more time because this took place. Nope. And they have to make some decisions as to how to make their team better in what we've often called the most important offseason in recent Charlotte Hornets history. What are some of the things that you feel like they can do tonight as free agency goes on to improve their team, even amidst the circumstances that are currently, upon us right now?
Yeah, I think the big question is, how big of a player, this is what everyone wants to know, right? How big of a player will the Charlotte Hornets be in free agency? And I think the answer to that question is not a major player, and maybe a player at all. They do have some roster spots to fill. I believe they have 12 players on the roster currently. It seems like are going to guarantee Kelly Oubre's contract. That deadline is today, June 30th. That would be $12 million. So again, without knowing what's going to happen with Miles Bridges, that would put their number at 108. So they would be under the cap. It was 122, and now there's reports that maybe there's an increase to that, which would obviously benefit the Hornets, give them a little bit more breathing room. But if they decided to get into this free agency pool prior to now they do have the qualifying offer to Miles Bridges, so that would be 1 year, $8 million. So you can add 8 to that and say that they're around, minimum would be around 116. So again, that's like $5 million that they've got under the cap. So they're still pretty cap strapped. But they've got some now, Walker, what would you say are their most pressing needs in free agency?
Well, look, one thing we can't operate on is the fact that Jake Fisher, if you wanted to bring that fish fry soundbite out at some point,
we're going fishing?
I think we are going fishing. I think Jake Fisher and Mark Stein hosted some kind of live. We'll see if you consider this a big one. Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, I think, hosted a live on Twitter last night. It had something like 3,000 viewers at 1 a.m. Eastern time because
what are you people doing?
Sicko.
If you're listening to this right now and you were on that, you are. You know what? Salute.
I might have been up. Up at that time. I did not check in.
What are you doing?
I did not check in.
Bed.
Yeah, I know. I do need to go to bed. But at the same time, Jake Fisher, there was a quote out there I saw tweeted where he said, if the money is close for Gary Payton II, he's going to go back to Golden State. But Detroit and Charlotte are teams to watch out for.
Backup point guard.
Well, I would say perimeter defense.
Yeah.
That guy is awesome out on the perimeter. Crazy athlete, cares about defense as much as anything. And I think he was a real addition for Golden State, the way that he was able to defend all year long. And then when he went out, I believe it was a broken elbow earlier in the playoffs. I think it was that Memphis series. Steve Kerr talked about it on the Low Post podcast about how he was worried like that. Look, I know we have Steph. I know we have Clay and Draymond. Gary Payton II really gave us some excellent minutes, and I know a lot of people were kind of clamoring for him to play more if he could in the NBA Finals. But like that's a name that we've seen linked to the Charlotte Hornets more so than I've seen with other free agents, right? So perimeter defense, Doug, I would be excited about that. Big man, we've talked about it a lot. You got Mark Williams. It would be nice to have a veteran center to help him out, maybe even start on day one. But perimeter defense, that gets me excited.
I get the feeling the Hornets are not going to walk away from this free agency period with an answer at center. If that occurs, it's going to be via trade. It won't be via free agency. The pool is not very deep. Hartenstein's there. He could command the mid-level exception if they go over the cap and then decide to use that mid-level exception. That's a possibility. That's a name there. I just don't think center. I think backup point guard, I think perimeter defense are certainly areas that they could look to address, especially, if, say, for example, a team comes along and offers Cody Martin a significant amount of money because they extended him the qualifying offer as well. Some team could come over the top and say, no, we saw the value of Cody Martin. Now he's hitting threes. He can play perimeter defense. That's a perfect kind of guy that we want to make our championship run. And the Hornets decide not to match because they want to put their priorities elsewhere. Then maybe they do look to go and find that perimeter defense elsewhere in free agency. But the other thing is backup point guard. Right now, they really don't have one. James Bouknight is hurt. I don't think he was really expected to play a ton of backup point guard role minutes anyway. But now he's hurt. He had the surgery on his pinky finger. He's going to miss Summer League. We don't know how far that's going to extend into the season. So now all of a sudden, we've been talking about how thin they were at center. Now with the drafting of Mark Williams, all of a sudden they're pretty thin at guard as well. Backup point guard could get interesting, Walker. Any names that stand out to you in the backup point guard pool?
I know that our Locked On teammate Brad Rowland for the Locked On Hawks podcast loved himself some DeLon Wright. I wonder if DeLon Wright might be a name that would interest some Charlotte Hornets fans to run that backup point guard spot. Maybe he counts for a little bit more money than you'd be willing to spend. Patty Mills is now a free agent, I believe. I think I saw Woj put that out there, that he's now free to be had. Patty Mills, I think, was somebody that the Hornets were interested in once upon a time, but maybe that comes back once again. And so those are a couple of the names that would make sense to me. Keep scrolling down the list.
How about
two,
Isaiah
right?
Thomas? I was obviously on the team last season, got on the vet minimum deal. Would you be okay? Maybe not in the primary backup point guard spot, but would you be okay filling out the guard rotation with Isaiah Thomas at a veteran minimum contract at another one?
Yeah, I just
maybe
think
multi-year.
I would rather go in a different direction. And that's not to say that Isaiah Thomas didn't provide us with some awesome memories in this little tiny stint, because he comes in and boom, immediately gives us production against the Cleveland Cavaliers when we didn't expect him to be able to play. I think offensively, clearly Isaiah can offer quite a bit, but if we're talking defensively, that's always been the biggest problem, to try to hide him on defense. And if you don't have the defenders to hide Isaiah for the benefit that he might give you offensively, then I just don't think it's worth it to sign him to any serious contract, despite me, he was as fun to listen to on exit interview day, like the wisdom from that guy, the stories he tells, the kind of guy that he is, great locker room presence, which you could argue the Charlotte Hornets need right now. That's fine. I wouldn't hate it. At the same time, I just want to be more defensive focused, Doug.
No doubt. And again, I wouldn't say that he would be an answer at the backup point guard position, but if they get him on some kind of, if they can fit him in under a veteran minimum for 1 year, I wouldn't be mad at that, just because it seemed like that Isaiah and LaMelo had a good relationship, that there was some wisdom being passed there. And I think that's always going to benefit your young players when you can have a veteran who's been there, done that, as they look to try to make a playoff run. I'm going to give you a couple names at the backup point guard position. These are familiar names. You ready?
Yep.
Well, but first, before I give you those names, who did they just hire as their head coach?
Steve Clifford, I believe.
That is correct. Steve Clifford. Now, who are some point guards that Steve Clifford has a relationship with?
Don't you do
comfortable coaching? Well, we have to go to the obvious one, right? Kemba Walker, who is completing a buyout right now with the Detroit Pistons after being involved in a trade in the deal that he was involved. That was the deal that sent Duran, right? I mean, he was involved in that whole situation there with the Knicks and Pistons and Hornets. So could Kemba Walker find himself in the backup point guard position behind LaMelo Ball? We know that he and Clifford have a special relationship. Could it be a sort of return to Charlotte? That might put some butts in the seats. What do you think?
Doesn't it feel weird to have Kemba Walker back? It doesn't mean
it'd be super weird.
I don't,
also great
with LaMelo Ball on the team. Yeah, like
he could extend his points lead.
He really could. It's funny. Are we just bringing somebody go get Courtney Lee? Where is he? Let's just bring him back and have a good old, Nick Batum's a free agent.
I'm going to give you one more. I got one more name. I'm going to give you one more name. I'm going to take it all the way back to Bobcats land. DJ Augustine.
Yeah, goodness gracious.
Unrestricted free agent. I looked this up because he played for Clifford in Orlando, right?
I think he hit the big three to win game 1 against Toronto the year that the Raptors would win the championship.
Okay. So I looked this up and Clifford said, it's on the record saying that DJ Augustine is one of his favorite players that he's ever coached. So I'm just prepping everyone. I'm just prepping everyone that if you see DJ Augustine's name in a Charlotte Hornets report after free agency opens, don't be shocked.
One of the guys we don't talk about it. Yeah, please do. One of the guys we don't talk about when we discuss problems that the Hornets or the Bobcats have had in the NBA draft, we don't go to the Brook Lopez DJ Augustine decision enough, because I remember sitting there on draft night thinking, this is easy. This is easy. Brook Lopez is perfectly the guy that you should choose to fit with this team. And instead they went with DJ Augustine when they still had Raymond Felton in place, I believe. And so it was like, what? DJ Augustine over Brook Lopez? That's one that we don't talk about nearly as much.
Well, it's a good reminder, Walker, that this team has been notorious over 2 uniforms, 1 uniform change now, but has been notorious for prioritizing the center position at the exact wrong time, right?
Yeah.
And they don't prioritize it at the exact wrong time. They have just not really synced up with making that position a priority, and actually, other than, and somebody pointed this out, I mean defensively, because obviously Al Jefferson is the exception to that rule. Bringing him in changed the Bobcats and into the Hornets, changed the franchise, made them a playoff team when they were absolutely miserable. There's no doubt about that. But I'm talking about an anchor defensively. That was not Al Jefferson. Al Jefferson was all about getting on the low block and putting it off the glass and scoring a bunch of points. That's great.
Wasn't that fun, though? God,
was amazing. I miss it.
Yeah, the picking up the basketball with one hand thing in the post and then backing your guy down. I loved Al Jefferson's game. How could you not? All NBA player. Yes, also not an all defensive player. So that was the difference between Al Jefferson and what you're talking about. And we'll see exactly if the Charlotte Hornets can get that defensive anchor. They drafted one, Doug, so maybe he's the guy for the future. Can he be at least somebody that shows flashes this year in his rookie season? I mean, because it's an elite skill set he brings, right? Like this is not a guy that, hey, maybe if he figures some things out, he can be a rim protector. That dude was awesome last year in college, protecting the rim. Can that translate immediately? Of course, he's going to have some trouble with the nuances of, team defense and drop coverage and all that. I get it. And defending the pick and roll was a real problem for him in college. Going to be like that in the NBA his first season. But he does bring a skill that Mason Plumlee doesn't have, that nobody else on this team has to that level. And so, I do expect Mark Williams to give you some PT. And I do think that there are going to be times where he shows you, oh, okay, yeah, this can work for the now, and I'm excited for the future.
I'm just gonna my only prediction is that DJ Augustine is going to be a member of the Hornets by the end of all this.
All right, let's end there. Let's just bring back DJ Augustine and bring back the good old Bobcats from yesteryear. You wanted to end on something else?
Well, just wanted to mention that if anything does happen after free agency opens tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I think, Walker, you're on duty. You're on duty on the breaking news hits.
Yep.
So Walker will jump back on the YouTube and on the podcast feed and give you some instant reaction to whatever happens tonight. And otherwise, we'll be back on Friday to break it all down.
Okay. Yep, there you go. All right. Have plenty more shows coming at you to update you on everything taking place surrounding the Charlotte Hornets via NBA free agency. Until next time, hope you have a great rest of your day.